everyone!
Hello!
Welcome back to our channel. I'm Nikki.
And I'm Rachel and we're the Stitch Sisters. This is part 2 of our Stash Attack challenge. So in part 1, Nikki had a grand plan. And that plan was to pick 3 patterns from my stash. And I picked 3 patterns from her stash. And then we each had to, live on camera, pick which of those patterns we were going to make. And it had to be a big 4 pattern to encourage us to use all of the big 4 patterns in our stash.
Yep.
And we had to use fabric that we already owned. No buying in this challenge at all.
Double stash attacks.
Double stash attack. We encourage you guys to join in with us, but the idea is that we use up some of these patterns and fabrics that we've had knocking around for ages.
What are we saving them for? Just use them.
Exactly. Now is a good time. What are you waiting for?
Yes.
So there is a reason that I'm sat here in my pyjamas. It is pyjamas.
And I'm in a cape.
Yes.
It's a bit random.
If you don't know that reason, make sure you go back and watch part 1 where you can see the patterns that we picked. But this now is a standard pattern review where we tell you all about the patterns that we made.
So before we go any further, just so you don't miss out on any of the lovely goodness that's coming up in our channel, make sure you subscribe and make sure you do the little bell as well, and that'll mean you'll be getting notified every time we put a video up.
So in part 1, I picked 3 patterns for Nikki, and of those 3, she picked this lovely cape.
So this is the new look 6152, and it's one of their Project Runway patterns, and I got it on the pattern swap, and I absolutely fell in love with the styling on the front. It's a cape and a skirt. I only had enough fabric to make the cape, and I went ahead and picked this lovely sort of flat boucle from my fabric stash that I'd got from Fabworks, and I also have a little lining inside, which was
You're like a vampire then, lifting your cape.
It's all my dreams come true, that is. So it's the fabric I had for the lining. I had bought ages ago because it was really cheap and I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I had 4 meters of it, but it's worked out absolutely fantastically for the cape. So I'm really, really pleased with both of them. The pattern was really simple. It had 3 pattern pieces. So it has 2 different lengths. So you've got a short length and a long length. And I wanted as long as I could get with my fabric.
How much did you have?
I had 2 meters.
And how much did the pattern say you needed?
It was 3 meters it needed for the long length, but I didn't want to do the short length. I wanted somewhere in between. I wanted the longest I could get. So I did fabric Tetris, and basically I had to, I cut the fab pattern on the shortest length, and then I added as much as I could get away with and had to refold it and refold it and refold it until I got away with adding 5 inches to the edge. Because I am tall, I would naturally add length to most of my coats and jackets and things like that anyway, but it's giving me an extra little bit of coverage, and I think it's quite a nice length. It comes down just over my hips, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to style it more for evening wear. I think just for day wear, it's because you can't close it. The option that I did was one without a button, although I think I could put a frog closure on it.
That'd be nice.
Closures, which would mean that it would actually stay on and I could wear it a bit more during the day. So if I do that, I could wear it in the day just with jeans and things like that.
Do you feel it's wearable because your arms are like Tyrannosaurus Rex in there, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're like
you can move around. It's just a bit odd. I think the frog closure would mean that it would sit more securely on my shoulders as I moved around. The problem is that when you move around, it kind of, once it slips off one shoulder, you have to kind of readjust it and put the whole thing back
But
up.
holding it close at the front would
keep it more stable, especially if it was just at the top here,
Yeah.
where the collar kind of turns over, and then I think you could wear it, and you could wear it in the day. I think it's quite fancy. I'm not sure if I would wear it just to pick the kids up, but I think I could wear it over evening dresses, especially coming into the Christmas season. I think I will get quite a lot of wear out of it, even if it's just that I'm out with, but I've put a nice top on and I've got a pair of heels on, and I might even have a pair of jeans, but I think it would just kind of elevate your outfit to the next level.
Yeah, I think it'd be perfect for those times when you don't really want to wear a coat, but you do need an extra layer.
Yeah.
I think it might be good for that, because
if you're going out for dinner, so you're just going from the car to the restaurant, but you can't just wear a dress because it's too chilly, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah. And I think it would look great over your socialite soiree dress, so that maybe its first proper outfit.
It may have a proper fabric, but I think I will put a frog closure on it, and that's definitely something to add to it. But you can do that just by hand stitching it on. It's not going to add any, it's not going to make any difference to the actual pattern. And yours, can you just point out you're sitting in your laundry?
I am. I'm sat here in pyjamas, lingerie, whatever you want to call it. So the pattern that I chose from the 3 that Nikki selected for me was a Burda style pattern. It's a vintage reproduction of a 1960s pattern, and it is for sleepwear. So it comes as a nightie, but it also comes as a little top and shorts, and that's what I've chosen to make. I picked this lovely viscose that was in my stash from Fabricland. I really love the fabric, and I think this is the sort of thing that I probably wouldn't really wear ordinarily, but because it feels really, I don't know, like I feel sexy but in a casual way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're still comfortable. I'm
still comfortable, yeah. So I know that my hubby would be like, oh, hello. But I don't feel like, you know, it's still sleepwear. And I think as you get older, you kind of appreciate having nice, luxurious things to wear to bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of what it feels like. So the pattern was really good. It's Burda 7109. It has this very cute little ruffle detail around the neck. And this one should have sleeves, but I decided to do the sleeveless version. Partly because of the fabric. I did only have 2 meters. The pattern called for 2 meters for the top and 0.7 meters for the shorts. Now I knew that I could get it out of 2 meters with a little bit of fabric Tetris and by missing off the sleeves. And I wouldn't want sleeves to sleep in anyway. I'd find that really restrictive. I did manage it, although I had a little bit of a horrific incident when I had cut out all the top pieces, and then I went to cut out my shorts, and I cut out the back piece of my shorts, obviously 2 layers because it was on the fold. And when I went to pick them up from the table, there was a huge hole about that big, like a big rectangular tear in what would have been the bum of the fabric.
Oh no.
And so I had to cut another one, and that made it really, really tricky because these, the neckline and the armholes are done with bias binding. So they need to be cut on the bias. Then this ruffle is really long, 3 meters long it was for my size. So this ruffle is in about 10 pieces. Because obviously by the time I cut a second pair of shorts out, then I had to just piece it out, whatever scraps was left. But it worked out great. I would say it's quite fiddly. So by the time, obviously it doesn't help if you've got 10 different seams in it, but by the time you've sewn this all into one long piece, then you need to hem it, then you need to gather it, then you need to attach it to the neckline, you need to baste it on, and then you've got this self-binding, and it is quite thin, so it's really quite tricky to get it up and over all of the bulk that is in the gathered area. So this required a lot of patience. Some very rude words were said. If I made it again, I think I probably wouldn't cut the ruffle quite so long. I don't think it needs quite so many gathers. In fact, I pressed them down because they were like chung, so I really need to try and flatten them a little bit, and I would make the bias binding wider because that would make the whole thing a lot easier, and I don't think it would matter if it was an extra sort of quarter of an inch wider or something.
It was meant to be, would it have been easier if it was in a chiffon, obviously, or something like that, which was much lighter, then you wouldn't have quite
No, I mean, viscose is pretty much as light as it gets, so I don't think it made any difference. I think a chiffon would be even harder because the part of the difficulty with the viscose or any kind of very fluid fabric is that you're trying to handle tiny little things and they're slipping around all over the place. So actually, if you used a cotton lawn or if you used a cotton voile or something that is a little bit more stable, that would probably be a little bit easier. What I did in the end was I overlocked the raw edge where the ruffle was to make the whole thing flatter, and that made it a little bit easier to get up and over with the bias binding. So I made a couple of modifications. The top is supposed to be a little bit longer, and if you look at the picture on the pattern envelope, you can only see the tiniest little peak of shorts underneath, but I didn't want that because I didn't think it was a very flattering length on me, so I took a few inches off the length. Once I'd made it, I tried it on and then decided that I would make the adjustment. The other thing that it did, I made a size 16, which is the size that the pattern recommended for me. Now, ordinarily, I would always size down, but because it's sleepwear, I want it to be loose and comfortable. So I wanted it to have the amount of ease that the pattern suggests. But what I found then is it did this weird thing on the side seams where from my underarm, it kind of went out in almost like a curve, which was slightly weird. So I changed the angle of that and just slimmed down just the bust portion down so it was closer to my body. And then I've left the fullness in the rest of the top. The other change that I made was that I didn't want to have the little elasticated bit on the bottom of the shorts.
No.
I'm a bit old for bloomers, and as cute as they look,
No.
I can't imagine sleeping in anything that kind of elasticated at the top of my thigh.
Oh,
that
God,
just seems really uncomfortable. Just more basic shorts.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really very pleased. The other thing I'm pleased about is knowing that I was going to have to take pictures in this. It made me make this lovely dressing gown. So this is just a Ponte Roma that I also had in my stash, and it was self-drafted based on some measurements that we worked out for a class a few years ago. So it's all done with rectangles. If you're interested,
Lovely.
we could put it on the blog at some stage.
Oh, yes.
And you can make your own dressing gown.
Comment below if you want that. Now, I would like to know, how long have you had that pattern in your stash?
I have had that pattern for about 5 years, I think.
And you've never cut into it? You've never used it?
Nope.
Okay. This is all why we're doing this stash attack, because we might as well use them, and I think they are a resource that we very often overlook because they get stored away in a box and then you forget about them. I think we need to get them out and have a look at the basic pieces and start using them more, and I'm really inspired by this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, these days, especially in light of the Stacey Dooley documentary recently, I think that's got a lot of people thinking about their impact, the impact that fashion has, the impact that sewing has. And even if you're just making 1 or 2 extra projects from your existing stash instead of buying more fabric, then you're doing your bit to help. So
absolutely,
you know, why not, when this video ends, go and have a look, have a rummage through your stash, decide which patterns. Don't worry about having to do the sort of blind pick and pick one of 3.
Just pick one.
Just pick one and then pick a fabric and get it made. And if you do that, then make sure that you share it on social media and use hashtag stashattack and tag us in so that we can see what you're making.
We'd love that. Well, we'll be back next time with another video, so make sure you join us then, and happy sewing!